Talk 1040 WHBO.
Whatever's on your mind.
There's something new in American popular culture.
For everyone.
Real people, real conversation.
Normal conversations that I'd have with my friends every day.
The basis of conversation in the community.
When Tampa Bay comes home. News Talk 1040 WHBO.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay for 28 years.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Granosky. So glad to be with you live again for another journey through the news together. And that's what we do on this program because we're guided by a search for the truth. And that means we're not going to be getting bogged down into tribalism, into partisanship, into nonsense. We really want to think critically. You know, we want to understand the way culture works, the way politics works, the way science works, and we want to investigate that neighbor to neighbor. And so doing that, I want to have a guest on who's been on the show. He's been on the podcast, the online-only podcast we have called Things Hidden. But he is someone who is well-versed in philosophy, but he's also just a keen observer of human behavior and social stuff. And so he's got a background having grown up in Australia, but also now living in France. Lay Fetter, how you doing, Lay?
I'm good, David. How are you?
Great. So I wanted to have you on. I know you've been kind of around the world, but do you have a background growing up in Australia and now you live in France? And I just like to get it. I don't, it doesn't matter how much you want to go into it or how much you know, but just getting people's perspective from the international scene, because we do a lot of focus on Florida and a lot of focus on America, but we want to know what's it like on the locals' perspective of what's going on in Australia and France. So let's just start where you want to go with this.
I just want to make sure you can hear me all right because I've got you on my telephone.
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. So yeah, just as long as you don't have the radio on or speakerphone, you should be good.
You're on speakerphone, but I'm trying to fix that while I speak with you. So hopefully there'll be no glitches. But just let me know if it goes audio-wise. So as I said, yes, I'm Australian, and I've been living in and out of Australia. I've been living in Australia all my life, but for the last 10 years, back and forth between there and France, mainly, but also a couple of years in the Netherlands and a few little sojourns elsewhere. And you just caught me at a good time. I've just come back to France tonight from holidays. So we went to Turkey via Czech Republic and then on the way back through Budapest. So I mentioned that because we got to at least see briefly some of the regulations in the airports and the way the locals were behaving. And so my obviously the whole world is kind of enduring something in its own backyard, but also looking around as much or as well as it can to other backyards and seeing what's happening over there. But as you well know, that information is filtered through mainstream media. So mainly people's impressions of what's happening elsewhere is narrowed by the sources of information. And I'll say this, that despite the internet offering a wonderful resource to ordinary people to go around what has, unfortunately become mainly propaganda, the corporate media today in the West, which is certainly no exception in France, which I'll get to. It's my experience so far that between let's say, my most educated friends, those who are professionals or who have tertiary degrees, they are the ones who are most likely to believe what the corporate media tells them, which I'll explain more or less what that message is, but you can probably guess. And the ones who are, let's say, ordinary workers, people perhaps without a tertiary degree or without a profession, they seem to be the ones who are more likely to seek to use Twitter or YouTube for their information. And so that's the lay of the land. And what I'm getting from Australia is that so we have sort of four mainstream news channels. Two are owned by, they're basically owned by two major players, Rupert Murdoch and Fairfax, the Fairfax family. And they are basically both, I wouldn't say they have a political agenda. They like to sell papers and bump up readers. So fear always works. So the information I'm getting, well, I don't know if I'm jumping around too far, but I'd say that the Australian and the French base has more or less been similar to what you would expect to find in a place like California or New York. It's sort of the coastal response is very much on the side of obedience to the state, and the mainstream media are really pushing that quite hard. I'll speak about the French first before I get to Australia, although at the moment, obviously, I think Australia is the more interesting case. But the French obviously have a long history and you can call it a proud reputation for protesting. And it's worth mentioning that France has 67 million people, and a very, very large percentage for such a populous country live in the capital city. So Paris is a notoriously rebellious place. But I have recently moved out of Paris and remarked that last year the obedience and obsequious or sycophantic behaviour, with the neighbourhood coming out at 8 p.m. and applauding nurses, and that went on for weeks. The wearing of masks and but then if the government said you don't have to wear masks, like as summer comes around, all of a sudden nobody's wearing masks, and then the government would come out and say, okay, now you have to wear masks again, and the sort of flip-flopping of the government was matched very, very obediently by the population, because partly, there's the threat of fines, and the government were very clever in passing that down the chain, so that it's the restaurateur who pays the fine, not the consumer who's not wearing a mask, etc., etc. So the government has been very effective, but it's and now up to the point that you're probably aware they have the vaccine passports, which are provoking large protests. But the government, I think their initial intention was, well, I can't read minds, but knowing the bureaucratic mind reasonably well, I think their intention was to generate enough fear to get the remnants of the unvaccinated to sign up, and that is in fact what happened. The system for online enrolments crashed. They have 3 million vaccine rendezvous, and even though that's sort of plateaued since then, the government, I think, in France have achieved partially what they aim, which is they want to get to some nominal number, perhaps 70%, where they can then, notwithstanding the politics around the Delta variant or what have you, they can say, look, we've got 70 or 80% vaccination, and perhaps they'll relinquish some of the control that they've been exercising. I'm not so sure about that, but we can talk about that later. So at the moment, the vaccine passports have a temporary support. I'm not even sure that it's past the National Assembly. I think it's at the moment still like an emergency mandate, and the government still have emergency powers dating back from the Bataclan terrorist attack. So there's a very fragile political machine, or a machine of political legitimacy, I should say. A lot of this is happening through presidential mandates that are then delayed through the chambers of parliament, and it doesn't seem to matter to anybody. So that's supposed to expire in November, but until October, the citizens have access to free PCR tests, which gives you sort of, they actually expanded the time in which that's valid. It used to be 48 hours. So sort of seemingly hypocritically, if they're serious about protecting people from being exposed to COVID, they've now extended that to 72 hours with a negative result. And so I mentioned my travelling. We've just travelled. We had to get tested at going in and out of airports. They would often give us a sort of very stern warning that if we don't do it, we won't get on our flight. But just as equally, we'd turn up to the airport and sometimes they wouldn't even ask us for the results. That's just happened now, coming back in from Istanbul via Budapest. We were threatened with not being able to even land in Budapest. We had to pay in Istanbul, I think 40 euros for the tests. The tests themselves were clearly done in a manner far less rigorously than is done in France. I don't know how they do it in the United States, but the swabbing was quick and gentle compared to the sort of deep and uncomfortable ones that we're used to. Just returning to France and focusing on that, those free PCR tests will expire in October. So then there'll be a month where if you want to go to a restaurant, apparently now, so not just restaurants, cafe, using public transport, using the TGV fast trains, the intercities, basically almost anywhere indoors, you'll be required to present a negative test result, a COVID immunity certificate from within 6 months, or a vaccination passport. Otherwise, you won't be served. And the month between the end of the free PCR tests and the vaccines, you'll have to pay 40 euros per test. So that's very coercive. I've spoken with lots of people here, and the French have their own unique unique perspective on liberty. They've got you can call it a proud history, a bloody history, but they see these mandates as whatever you say, whatever one thinks about the vaccinations, the mandates are really polarizing because the French, the Parisians in particular, aren't fond of tyranny, although from an Englishman, or by that I mean broadly speaking, the English-speaking world, from our legal history, Magna Carta, and so on and so forth, they already live under a centralised state system with, a semi-socialist welfare state. So they've already sort of they've given up a lot to enjoy the sort of cheap hospital care that and the very generous welfare system, but this for them is sort of too much. So
I'm speaking with hold on a second. I'm speaking with Leigh Fetter. We're going to take a quick break and return to get a perspective on what's going on in France and Australia from a local's vantage point, someone who knows both the Australians with personal friends and family and living in France, just to get international perspective on why we're all in it together for various issues. Back in just a moment.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania Catania personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm speaking with Leigh Vetter, who joins us now. You're a professor in France, right? Or you teach over there?
Yes, I have been, but the coronavirus actually put me out of work.
Oh, so you're not teaching anymore, huh? Yeah, with the corona?
No, so now I was preparing to go back to Australia, and now that's looking impossible. So that's the drama. The background drama is that I've been okay. I've got savings and I've got other things to do. I'm doing my own research, but yeah, it's been strange because I expected Australia to be the kind of, the haven to which I could always return, but it's looking like I'm better off staying over here and finding another university to teach in.
So what percentage would you guesstimate or whatever of the French population are on board the whole lockdowns and mandates and passports? And then what percentage for the Australians? I know they're in a little bit more intense situation. What would you say for both?
Yeah, so strangely enough, look, it's quite hard to speak in such generalities because the mainstream media here are to the left, and they seem to be, even for the left, reticent but willing to support the lockdowns. And you do find a lot of support for the lockdowns, for the mandates, the passports or vaccine mandates. So you do see a lot of support in France, but there's also, the very public protests against it. So I would still say that it's more than 50%
in France support the mandates. I might be wrong on that, but the level of support in Australia for the government's response is much higher, and that's kind of the stranger thing. I think that many people around the world have a certain idea of Australians and their character, the national character, and I think once upon a time, that was probably true, but I think Australia's been spoiled by 20 or 30 years of economic success, and we've become a little too comfortable. And in that time, the government have been the governments. We have to remember it's a federated system, so the states have less power now than they used to, but they do have power over education and health. So you see these little tin pot dictators who otherwise have no power. Since the Second World War, Australia has been mainly centralising the power of the federal government using, its constitutional powers. In exchange, the states have just been taking money from the federal government. So now you see these state leaders who've never really had much of the limelight, and they're sort of playing the role of statesman to a smouldering-eyed media. So as a consequence, the Australians, unfortunately, I think are incredibly credulous. I think that they're an island away from the world, and they are a hardworking people. So they only get an hour or 2 hours at night time to watch television. So they all sit down and watch the same programs, and the programs are pushing the fear as if it's March 2020. They really don't know what the virus is, and they don't seem to want to know. They're quite happy just to live in this reality as if people are dropping dead in the street.
Yeah, so I'm hearing that they have a 9 p.m. curfew in Australia. They have people getting arrested if they leave their apartment or something. They can't drive between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. They they have to wear masks outside. That one weird-looking guy said that you can't drink a beer without a mask on. Why are they doing such heavy-handed stuff in Australia? Is this long time coming, or did all those little government bureaucrats get together and say, "Hey, let's try Australia. Let's do some experimenting on them. They can't do anything about it."
So I've worked 2 years as a bureaucrat. I was an advisor to the Premier in Victoria. And Victoria is sort of the leading state on all this stuff. So to paint the picture, as I said, every state has a slightly different character. And so you did see early on Victoria, which is probably the most leftist of states, they were a more, they went heavy lockdown. And we're talking, put it in context, we're talking about a few cases, not hundreds, not thousands, a few cases. And of the deaths, this is similar, I guess, to what you've seen elsewhere, but the average death, over 85. And so the attitude originally was, well, we're an island, we can have a zero COVID policy, let's lock down the borders, which if the vaccine came quickly and was roundly successful, may have led Australia to have allowed the best policy.
Leigh, we're out of time. We're going to have to pick this up again. I'm sorry, but I got a hard break. But we'll talk soon, okay?
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be back in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice.
If you're not scared of COVID,
they are waiting for hours.
Dangerous and life-threatening.
The Afghan withdrawal.
You should wear a mask. It's a crazy world.
Delta variant surges.
The Taliban says we are going to see flooding.
Coming across our border, history will be watching.
Frustrated and scared.
Deeply saddened by the facts.
It's our national security.
What's coming next?
When you have people indoors.
We are here to help you survive it. News Talk 1040. WHBO.
The FDA today is out of the airport picking up pace. Since yesterday, the Pentagon says roughly 16,000 people were evacuated from Kabul, and helicopters and troops are reportedly being sent into Kabul to extract stranded American citizens. In Tennessee, search crews are looking for some 40 people missing after catastrophic flash flooding over the weekend. At least 21 people died after over 17 inches of rain fell in a 24-hour period. What's left of Henri is still soaking parts of the inland Northeast. A tornado reported in central Massachusetts. The United States Capitol Police has cleared the officer involved in the shooting death of Ashley Babbitt, who was seen attempting to kick through a window shortly after entering the Capitol on January 6th. Wall Street, the Dow closed up 215 points. Dave Packer, ABC News.
News Talk 1040, Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer. This weather brought to you by Installation Plus of Tampa. Call Installation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374 and save money today. Partly cloudy and muggy today at 35%, widely scattered any time of the afternoon. Storm at 90, 45% tonight at 77, big 65% anytime Tuesday. Storms up to 89. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer for News Talk 1040 WHP.
So we have an international audience, and I want to continue to learn perspectives from what's going on the local scene around the world. So it was great to have Leigh Fetter join us, where he's an Australian living in France, so he could give us a twofer. He could give us a perspective on what's going on in France and in Australia, where, you know, we can't rely on these dubious media outlets. They've just got such a dramatic dog in the fight. You know, they don't have any skepticism of state power. And it's interesting to see it happen in real time. You saw how the media really turned on Biden as it pertains to Australia. Of course, they didn't hit him as hard as they would have hit Trump if the same spectacle had happened under Trump's watch, because he was a designated villain and scapegoat of the media class. But nevertheless, they really went hard on Biden. And I was critical of Biden, but of course I was talking about it in terms of botching the withdrawal, not the withdrawal itself. But the media, CNN, MSNBC, those kind of media outlets, they carry water for the state establishment. You see how they had no problem changing their tune on this issue and saying, man, he's totally not telling us the truth. We need to be over there. We need to be involved. We need to, be involved with every aspect of this thing. We shouldn't have left. They just come on lockstep in the same, mimetic, herd mentality about this issue. And notice they do it. They only threw Biden under the bus on an issue that was about him reducing state intervention into an issue. You notice that? Everywhere else, he's pro-state. I mean, by state, the federal government intervening and meddling in your life. But the one time where he says, let's just end this Afghanistan thing, that's a type of meddling. You're meddling in the lives of people around the world and bringing soldiers and so forth into endless combat situations with no mission or no clear, achievable purpose. And so you're doing that, and that's the context by which he gets his first real wall-to-wall criticism, even if it was more dialed down because of him being on team good guy in the media's eyes. So it's just interesting. Do you see how this works? If a, government is interventionist in your life or the life of others, the media will praise them. if a government is more pro-freedom, hands-off, stay out of the other affairs of other countries, reduce foreign aid, reduce involvement in NATO, like Trump had suggested, you are going to be roasted by the chattering media class. So that's the formula that you got to understand is operating when you see the way they shift on a dime. They are, these media outlets are really, really, basically PR firms for giant corporations that have vested interest in intervening in people's lives in various ways. There's no giant multinational corporate lobbying effort for generic products, for example. There's no money there. So where would the money, come from to do that kind of lobbying, especially compared to the big money behind the for-profit, pharmaceutical products that, and again, I tell you this a lot, but the FDA, they've approved this new product today and so forth, and Biden's over there with a gross distortion of what the role of the executive branch is in the federal government, telling people and businesses, you must mandate this product now. You must mandate this. Everybody has to have this product. But the FDA has long had a history of just being a revolving door rubber stamp. Look what they did with the whole oxycodone. They had a scam going on there where they had the guy. I mean, I'll read the story. We'll bring on somebody to talk about it because I don't have, every little specific, and I don't want to read the article. I'd rather have on some of the guests that I know of who could talk about the oxycodone story and how the FDA was involved, but they just gave a rubber stamp approval. They put a little insert saying don't worry, it's not addictive. And oxycodone went on to blow up this whole painkiller opioid problem. That's your FDA. That's just one example. There's so many. You see, people have emailed me saying, can you do a show talking about all the things the FDA has approved and how it's not been so good for you? The Food and Drug Administration, look at what they've done with food. They tell you that it's A-OK to eat vegetable oils. In fact, they tell you to replace, butter and beef tallow and coconut oil with seed oils, these toxic vegetable oils. And what has that done? It's made a mess of our heart health. It's made a mess of people with, metabolic dysfunction and obesity and diabetes and cancer rates and so forth have gone up since the government has been approving these things as food products. Oh, listen to us. We know what is food, and we decree that vegetable industrial waste product is food. Nothing you can do about it, and we're also going to subsidize it to make it more cheaper than the more natural alternatives that people have eaten for thousands of years. So the FDA and the USDA, they have a revolving door relationship with the food companies and the drug companies. And most of the staff, especially at the level of management and so forth, they are either former or future employees of the very companies that they're supposed to be regulating as third-party arbitrators over, or third-party observers or third-party, referees or so forth. So this is just completely dubious that the media would continue to, act in this way. We got over there in Australia, QR codes mandatory in a region over there just for them to go into offices, retail stores, and ride shares in Australia. I mean, come on. What is this? This is beyond the pale. I can't believe that these people could be so wrong about every major illness, chronic diseases, and so forth, and yet somehow they just decided, well, let's just have QR codes for you to get into retail stores and all this stuff, and you got to scan things to get in here, scan things to get in there, because we just super, super, super care for you. We just really, really care for you. Come on. And the reason why you can pick up on this pattern, I'm just trying to help us see the discernment that we can pick up here with these patterns of the way media talks about stuff. And, one of the things that they do is that, again, they kind of want us to silo the way the media paints a story about narratives in our life. Is they kind of like to silo topics away from one another. So, like I mentioned, they're very critical of Biden when it comes to him reducing intervention in Afghanistan. But they're very praising and very state propaganda style when it comes to enforcing any bit of Biden's, healthcare plan health policy, where he's always about forcing this person and forcing this employee to take this product, pushing, demonizing people who don't go along with the groupthink. They're very excited about amplifying that because it's an example of state intervention in your life, and it helps big business and big government. It's just part of the package deal of how, that's the groupthink framework in that city and the media class that covers it. Mike Cernovich says if the U.S. wasn't obese, COVID deaths would have been significantly fewer. Look at the numbers from Trim and Fit Nations. And that's an example. That's part of it. But you got to understand where the obesity rates that are so high are coming from, and it comes from the consumption of vegetable oils. And carbs and sugar play a role, but without the presence of vegetable oils in our life, it wouldn't be quite the biggest role as big a role as we see happening in the rates of obesity in America and other countries who've adopted vegetable oils by their own government's recommendation. So when I saw that, for example, when you had Jen Psaki, the press secretary for Biden, and she came out saying, that, Americans aren't stranded in Afghanistan. When the whole, you look at that, and here's what I want to say about this. Because I said, one of the things that the media likes to do is compartmentalize everything. So they tell you, you obey your government and its bureaucrats and their edicts no matter what when it comes to what they say about COVID. But then when your government, like Biden and his administration, don't keep intervening in Afghanistan, what do? They say, oh, actually, let's expose all the lies, and Biden said it's fine and it's not, and Biden said this and it's not, and so forth and so on, right? So they're more critical and harsher on that because as PR firms for the status quo of big business and big government, these media outlets want to push narratives that advance intervention abroad or at your house or your community or your economy, see? And so notice, though, but if you pick up the pattern, the same lady, Jennifer Psaki, and her team, it's not her, she's just part of that groupthink team, that says Americans aren't stranded in Afghanistan, even though we can see it with our own eyes, is the same dubious source telling you, you must take this product or else you are not a welcome person in America. You are going to be treated mean. You're going to be treated as the blame scapegoat. You must do this. You must have a lockdown. You must put 5 masks on your 3-year-old kid. All these different things that they say. That's the same source telling you Americans are not stranded in Afghanistan when we all know and the whole world knows that the Taliban surrounds the airport and that there are thousands of Americans in there. And the Taliban said there's a hard red line of August 31st that America agreed to, and they want it maintained, or else they said there will be reciprocal action. So they're telling Biden, we call the shots, and they're speaking in that way. And so the thing is like, okay, if they're telling you, we've got to be able to see this kind of pattern recognition if we're going to be able to move people beyond this cul-de-sac, this dead end of authoritarian style state and media and big business micromanagement of reality with their dubious biases blatantly on display. If the same voice is telling you, that doesn't mean it is necessarily false, but it just means to say, if they're always manipulating you and telling you, no, there's no Americans stranded in Afghanistan, as they just said today with the Biden administration. It's the same voice telling you, you have to take this, or you have to do this, or you have to stay in your house, or don't worry about vitamin D, or don't worry about getting obesity under control, all these other things. So consider the source is what I'm trying to get at here. Consider the source. Don't let them compartmentalize your mind to say, well, man, Biden really blew it and he's lying and he's being dishonest about what's going on in Afghanistan. But boy, he's just an objective arbiter decree of science from the special priestly cast of scientists in the halls of CDC and FDA. I mean, my goodness. I mean, they're just No, it's just objective reality there. Come on. It's the same human nature at display. It's the same massive monopoly and hubris on display. It's the same political science on display. That's what it means to follow the science for them. It means to follow the political science that we use to try to gaslight you into doing exactly what we tell you to do without any consideration for your conscience and your human dignity. And no consideration about the future. No consideration about, again, what lockdowns do to people's mental health. We hear the news about what's going on with Australian mental health. The people are having a hard time, and my heart breaks for the people there. And my heart is, I have a lot of sadness for the stories that I hear around this country and this community here in Florida. People being victims of a dubious government that they put their trust in. They don't even know they put their trust in, right? It's just kind of like assumed that like people are just, you know, if they're on TV or something that gives them a sense of authority, you know? And I mean, I understand that even in media. I mean, I'm on a broadcast radio station right now. I understand that the role of performing in broadcast, people put more weight behind what somebody on radio says than what somebody says on a YouTube channel alone. And I understand that. And that's a reality that affects people to various degrees or not, whether they're younger or older. Because people believe that, you know, like media institutions are like vetted and, you know, they're like a source of authority. But we have to be careful about this, and not just careful in I don't trust liberal or I don't conservative, but we have to really be discerning. This is not rocket science. We're not asking people to do equations or something to figure out what to believe, but we're saying that we have to be wise about this stuff. We have to use discernment. And when the same voices are telling you, you have to do this, and they're the same voices telling you, Afghanistan's army will not be taken down one bit from our training. We've been doing this for decades. We know, we're the experts. How many Americans, when they said, no worries, Afghan army will hold up, they've got the training, they're the best equipped, they're ready to go, no, bam, it was gone. But how many Americans believe, because they were from the Pentagon and the stars and all the stripes and everything, they saw the robe and the clothing and the uniform, and they said, I trust them because they wear this uniform and they are on television or whatever, or NPR, and they're saying, we have got it figured out. We are the experts. And then, boom, it went up in smoke. The whole thing, their whole legitimacy was totally exposed to reality. And the same thing is happening from the same government when they say, we are the experts. You see our white coat? We are the experts. Just like the Afghan army, we tell you will never fall. And then, boom, it's gone. They also tell you, oh, there will be no harm to you to do lockdowns. There will be no harm to you to put on a mask on a kid's first several years of life. We know, we've been around since the dawn of time. We know how human nature is. We've seen how, kids need, they don't need they don't need to see smiles and facial expressions for early childhood development. We know it all. Just like we know that we could spend $2 trillion in Afghanistan, and we can tell you with sole sobriety and certainty that they will not fall. Oh, okay, you're an expert. And so people believe that stuff. We all, I mean, I'm tempted to believe it, and I criticize this stuff all the time. You look at the costume, Shakespeare says all the world's a stage. Someone puts on a costume, they have a certain tone, they have a certain look in their eye, they have a certain haircut, they're on certain big media cameras and everything, and you say, okay, well, they look like they're an expert. Dave Chappelle had a routine about this, didn't he? About dressing like you're something, but you're not. The comedians always have the best truth sometimes. But that's what's at play here, my friends. I want you to understand this. Wherever you are around the world, that's what you've got to reckon with. I don't care if you're liberal, conservative, whatever you are. When people put on costumes, that doesn't mean that they are sacred, okay? You have a conscience. You know what's right and wrong. Nothing the TV man or person or woman tells you can override your conscience. You know it's wrong to force people to take products. You know it's wrong to force people to eat a certain food. You know the history of human beings, that when you mandate one thing, they will take it and they will go with it as far as they possibly can get away with until horrible things happen. We can watch the Stanford prison experiment, read video, watch articles, read video, or watch videos, whatever, read articles, and we can see what happens when you give people a certain kind of costume and the feeling like they are, immune to accountability. That's what's going on here, folks. You have to understand this. It's not about which team wins. It's not about which party's in power. It's this world of stage. This world is a stage. This world is a stage. And people put on costumes and they bully you and they tell you things. They can tell you the sun's not up and you see it and they tell you we're the experts and look at us. We've got a better tan than you. We know about the sun and it's not here. And you say it's there. That's what we're dealing with, folks. It's called mimetic peer pressure. It's called mimetic conformity. It's called the power of the sacred. Oh, I've got the conch. And I've got the TV and I've got the costume and I've got the voice and I've got this and that. And therefore I tell you, and yet your conscience tells you, no, do not use violence against your neighbor. Do not use sacrifice to try to deliver mercy to your neighbor. Use self-sacrifice. Use mercy. Use nonviolence. Use love. I'm David Gronowski. We'll take a break and return in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they can, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
You read about it, you've seen it on the news. Used car values are off the charts, and Brandon Ford is doing whatever it takes to stay ahead of the curve. Here's Wayne Hammond.
In all my time in this business, I've never seen anything like this. Used car values are moving faster than a rabbit with a fox on its tail. So here at Brandon Ford, we're adjusting our used car books every day to make sure you're paying the lowest possible price for the best possible pre-owned vehicle. We are even discounting our low-mileage retired demos.
Only the largest volume Ford dealer in the world has the flexibility to keep the cost of pre-owned vehicles low, while every other dealer needs to raise prices. And Wayne, you're giving top dollar for trade-ins.
If you want to get a smoking deal and top dollar for your trade, come see us right now. My full-scale used car clearance sale is the place to be.
Going on now at Brandon Ford, the largest volume Ford dealer in America. Highway 60 and 301 in Tampa, and at BrandonFord.com.
If you want to save on pre-owned Jeeps, Rams, Kias, BMWs, get to Brandon Ford's full-scale used car clearance sale right now.
So this whole Build Back Better thing, it's obviously just something that a lot of these little globalists that like to coordinate, hey, let's try this thing, let's do this thing. This will help all of our shared multinational clients have the world that they rather have, a global marketplace and all this stuff. It's obvious that this has something to do with trying to mandate and control through digital passes what people are allowed to do or see or go to or get food and so forth. It's nonsense. Again, if they cared about, if this was, I wish people could have more discernment. It's so frustrating to see so many people so dutifully faithful to such uncaring people. The opposite of bleeding hearts. And it's like, if they really cared about your health and they were going to do this nanny state stuff, they would attach it to things like, well, if you're going to have a health passport, you also need to, we need to ban vegetable oils. I don't think we should use the state to ban things like that, like top down like that. But I mean, I'm trying to, in order to have wisdom and discernment, you have to step into the shoes of the people that you disagree with very much, right? And be able to say, okay, from their perspective, I think I should be able to control people and tell people what to do, like they're children, right? Grown adults who know better than they do, but I get to tell you what to do because I've got the conch of power. I'm Mr. King. I'm Mrs. King, whatever. So you have that kind of thing. And if they really, I'm trying to get myself in their shoes. And if I was in their shoes, I'd say, okay, well, then I'd also look at the literature about what causes obesity. And I'd say, okay, get rid of these seed oils. Let's nanny state ban those seed oils. But they don't do it. Or, let's tell people to reduce their sugar and fried food consumption, just like basic stuff. Get some vitamin D, get some sun. So important for immune system. How about K2? You see kids have to have shots and stuff because people are deficient in K2 because we don't eat the foods that are rich in K2. We don't eat raw cheeses or natto like the Japanese eat. These fermented beans that are rich in K2. We don't eat beef liver. Oh, beef liver is a derided food for many people. Oh, I can't stand that. But it's loaded with K2. So people, you need K2 to get the D, vitamin D, But they don't tell you this stuff. So that's why I don't buy for 1 second. Especially after I know that the same governments lie about Afghanistan. Oh, it's perfect. It'll be fine. We did it all. We're the experts. Shut up and listen to us. Or remember inflation? Oh, inflation's temporary. No problem. It just keeps going up and up. Or remember the housing crisis? Oh, you just keep buying your house. The Fed said, don't worry, go buy a house. Get in debt. It's perfectly fine. What he meant was, we'll take care of our clients, big banks and big companies on Wall Street, and we don't care about you. You're our product. And that's why those are the same sources. When I consider the source, I don't listen to them about health advice. You see? Why would you listen to those people? Why would you listen? Do your own research. Look into the science. Look at the studies. Science is not the science. That's political science when they say that term. So we got to do better than that. I see your comments. Keep coming, bringing them in. We'll get to them in just a moment. Stay with us. Great questions, comments, so forth. We'll get to them in just a moment. We're going to come back for hour 2 with Maj Toure, the great activist and thinker, the Solutionary Summit coming up in Florida. We're going to talk about that. In the meantime, Godspeed.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packard. Hours after the announcement that the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine received full FDA approval, President Biden spoke from the White House.
He's glad the FDA gave Pfizer's vaccine full approval, but frustrated so many still haven't gotten the shot.
The pandemic of the unvaccinated is a tragedy that is preventable.
President Biden saying free vaccines could save thousands in this Delta surge.
People are dying and will die who don't have to.
More than 6 million Americans got their shots in the last 7 days. Andy Field, ABC News, Washington.
In Afghanistan, the airlift picking up speed. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan today at the White House said in a week, the U.S. has evacuated more than 15,000 people, most of them Afghans with special immigrant visas, in a 24-hour period.
To facilitate the evacuation of third country nationals from friends and foes alike, and to facilitate the evacuation of tens and thousands of people who, for humanitarian reasons, want to leave Afghanistan. This is an enormous logistical, diplomatic, security, humanitarian undertaking. There is no other country in the world who could pull something like this off, bar none.
Helicopters and troops reportedly being sent into Kabul to extract stranded American citizens. At least 21 dead, 10 people missing after flash flooding in central Tennessee Saturday. And desperation as a family in Waverly searches for a 15-year-old girl swept away in floodwaters in Humphreys County. Lily Bryant's aunt, Terry Holderman, came from out of state to look.
It's just been tough because we can't find her and we need to find her.
Meanwhile, the cleanup has begun in the Northeast after Tropical Storm Henri. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy.
Boy, the flooding was significant and the rain extremely, extremely heavy.
In Connecticut, some parts of the state got up to 4 inches of rain and what's left of the storm, spawning a tornado in central Massachusetts today. You're listening to ABC News.
Do you check your Google search results regularly? You should. People often get their first impression of you or your business online. Negative comments on the internet can impact your life and your livelihood. Take control of your online reputation. Get your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com. It may reveal negative posts from an ex-employee, upset patient or client, news article, legal issue, or even exposed personal information right there in your Google search results. Uncover what's lurking on the internet about you with reputationdefender.com's patented scan and get your free reputation report card. Or for immediate assistance with your reputation, call 800-401-6681. Our cutting-edge technology helps make your Google search results look their best. Call 800-401-6681. That's 800-401-6681. 800-401-6681. Or take the free scan at reputationdefender.com.
The death toll from the devastating earthquake in Haiti is now more than 2,200. More than 300 people are still missing. Since the disaster, gangs have blocked roads, hijacked food and aid trucks, and stolen supplies. But now one of the country's most powerful crime bosses says his gangs have reached a truce and is offering to assist in relief efforts. Andrew Cuomo sounding defiant during his final address as New York's governor.
On his last day in office, Governor Andrew Cuomo denounced the sexual harassment allegations and the investigative report that preceded his resignation.
The Attorney General's report was designed to be a political firecracker.
In a recorded farewell address, he sought to establish a legacy beyond what drove him from office.
No governor in the nation has passed more progressive measures than I have.
Cuomo said his successor, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, will step up to the challenge when she becomes the state's first female governor after midnight. Aaron Katursky, ABC News, New York.
Afghanistan's athletes were not able to travel to Tokyo to compete in the Paralympic Games, but Afghanistan's flag will be displayed in tomorrow's opening ceremony. The president of the International Paralympic Committee says it will be done as a sign of solidarity. A representative of the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees will carry the Afghanistan flag. On Wall Street today, the Dow was up 215 points. The Nasdaq gained 227. This is ABC News.
The pandemic's reminded us we live in a sea of airborne germs that can assault us with every breath. Your nose is the body's first line of defense by helping filter out allergens, bacteria, and viruses before they reach your lungs. So how do you clean your nose? Navage uses powered suction to flush out mucus and germs that cause congestion or worse, can make you sick. Over 2 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and feel healthier without drugs. Go to Navage.com or find Navage at Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target.
Dave Packer, ABC News.
News Talk 1040 Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Good afternoon. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer. This weather brought to you by Insulation Plus of Tampa. Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374 and save money today. A 25% widely scattered shower and thunder shower this afternoon, moving slowly randomly at 91. Picks up to a 45% tonight from the southeast at 79. Tomorrow, cloudy. It's a 65% any time of the day storm up to 89. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer, News Talk 1040 WHBO.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you again for another hour of our daily radio show. It's also a video stream show you can watch on Rumble. And just go search for A Neighbor's Choice and subscribe there so you can watch it every day, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, or that's Monday through Friday, weekdays. Or you can subscribe to our podcast where you can listen to us on demand whenever you want. Or perhaps you're listening in the radio right now. Thank you. Please set it to this station. This is your go-to place for our program and what we do. And as you know, if you've listened to the show, it's a wild ride. I'm not just interested in doing politics. We do a little bit of that because it's such a heavy-handed presence in our lives. We got to talk about it as neighbors. But we also got to go into stuff that we can actually affect and have more, we can do stuff in politics, but it's downstream from culture. And so we get into culture, we get into health and nutrition, we get into science with our Science and You segment where we get into physics, we learn about medicine, breakthroughs, paradigm shifts, and treatments and so forth, all kinds of exciting stuff. We have a lot of fun with it. So thank you for joining me. And hour 2, we're going to have, and this hour, we're going to have Maj Touré on soon. You don't want to miss it. So looking at the comment stream, we see just another Manic Monday, somebody said, and another says just another Mimetic Monday. Very good. Great to hear you again, David. Keep up the fight for the truth. Thank you, Dr. Pritchard. And another, mitochondrial RNA is not something to play around with. Another comment, Luca from Australia. He was on our show recently. We had giving us a local's perspective of what's going on in Australia. He said they have a QR code for everywhere, grocery stores and the whole lot. There's no commercial establishment that doesn't require it. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Another, he says, thanks for the concern on Australia. I wonder if all the negative coverage across the states on Australia will help tip the scales here, awaken the will of the people, etc. I hope so. We don't want to go through this. This is feels like an iron curtain or something, doesn't it? Where there's no visible Berlin Wall, but it certainly feels like walls are being placed, digital walls and media walls of misinformation. But they've been doing this for a long time. They misled us into wars for the whole 20th century. Welcome to history, unfortunately. It's tough. It's tough. It's not easy. We've had relative wealth and comfort here in the Western countries, and so, we're not used to the fact that much of history, unfortunately, is dominated by power-hungry, petty little wannabe gods trying to whip up cults of personality to manipulate the passions of the crowd, to send them off to scapegoat some person or group. That's history, but Jesus has been battling it. He's been dismantling it through nonviolence, through another signal, through another narrative, and we ought to take it seriously. It's the only lifeline we have, which is to love our neighbor, to forgive our enemies. And I know that's hard. That doesn't mean we have to be milquetoast. We're not talking about being kind like in some kind of superficial way. We got to tell it like it is. Jesus called out those who had power, and he exposed them for hypocrites that they were. He called out the the brood of vipers that were political leaders who were manipulating the people into believing that they alone could be their, heroes with their, coercion and their rules. He challenged those in power, but he also did it all with love, empathy, not just fake empathy, but deep, true solidarity with one another. We need to do that. We need to build that kind of a culture. We need to teach that to our children. Children is the children, that's where we will have the biggest opportunity in this time so that we can, to borrow the phrase, build back better from this moment of madness and mania. We need to have a trusting society, a society that normalizes kid wearing masks from the time they're toddlers. It's not a trusting society. We need verbal and nonverbal cues. That's science. Scientific suggestions have shown, 50% of communication is nonverbal? People want to see faces on video, right? I mean, there's a reason why some of you know that I'm on audio, but you'd prefer to watch video because you want to see that more interaction. We need that. We're human beings. These people who come and go, they're fly-by-night political leaders, and they think that they can tell you through their cult of personality or their whole, pomp and circumstance that, oh, no, we figured it all out. We're going to go remake Afghanistan into a, liberal democracy. Oh, we're going to, tell you exactly what's good for your health. We're going to mandate it and force it. And there's no worries, no long-term consequences. We don't know. We're just supposed to trust these people and put our faith in them and imitate them and worship them. We can't do that. That's just not an option. We can't do that anymore. We've been doing it too long. So many people for decades. It's not just this new pandemic thing that we're dealing with. It's the generations of misinformation that these wannabe gods, these clowns dressed as authority figures, they want to puff up their chests. And I know they mean well. A lot of them, they really believe their experts are right, but their experts don't know what they don't know. There's a reason why Galileo was, imprisoned and so forth, is when you challenge the reigning establishment paradigm shift, you will be attacked. And how can you have paradigm shifts occur when all of the money and all of the media and all this stuff is so centrally coordinated? You saw the Biden administration saying they work with Facebook and other groups to rein in what they say is misinformation. We're literally living in a moment where so much of the internet discourse is being controlled by governments, and we're just yawning, some of us are, as if this is no big deal because we have the background trauma of fear that allows us to be suggestible to say, oh, yeah, censor our opponents. Sounds great, because if they don't censor them, then I'm going to be hurt and I'm scared. See, at the end of the day, people for, mandates and passports for products and so forth, and those who are against them, we're all on the same boat at the deepest level, even though it goes off into different directions. We all want to be safe. We all want to be secure. We all want to feel like we're taking care of our family. And that's the foundation by which we can have wisdom to heal the division that politics has divided us so much in, to be able to reach across people, who have been conditioned for many years to hate you because of your very conscience. And they believe that they're not primitive, superstitious, groupthink, people when they do it. They think that they're well deserved to hate people that think differently than them. And the media tells them every day, if you don't go along with our mandated medical decrees, you're not smart. You're reckless. Then the studies show, the group that's most hesitant to go along with their mandated stuff are the people who have PhDs and those who don't go to college, which I think are typically some of the brightest groups of people who say, I'm not going to get in debt and go to college, and those who say, I'm going to study a field so well that I get a PhD in it. I mean, those are some really great segments, and those are the groups that are biggest in terms of their hesitancy to go along with mandated products that they want us all to just submit to. That's not what society is about. It's about human adults taking care of their families, having risk. And if they cared one iota, again, thinking from their perspective, if I was a nanny stater person and I wanted to control people and I thought that people were my property like these people at Davos and everybody thinks, if I wanted to be like that, then I would say, okay, well, if I really care about these people, then I've got to ban the vegetable oils. That'll drop obesity. That'll drop these comorbidities that are causing people to have severe cases of these, variants and so forth. But they don't do it. And that's why you know that their narrative they sell you, which is imitating the Christian concern for the neighbor, is not true. That it's not real, that it's not rooted in substance. They're borrowing the Christian conscience framework of saying we love our neighbor, we'll move heaven and earth to help the vulnerable. And so we want to say, hey, why can't you care about people who have heart disease? Why can't you tell people to stop eating products that are going to really mess up their body with their heart? Why don't you care about people, government? Why can't you tell people the truth about diabetes, that you got it wrong? And that the treatments for it could be totally different? Why don't you tell people, Biden administration, FDA, CDC, whoever, Trump administration, whatever, why don't you tell people about Dr. Michael Lasante's work like we have? 40,000 citations using generic antibiotics to treat cancer stem cells and to prevent cancer metastasis. This was published in Nature Journal. So it's got the credentialism check mark checked. It's got the 40,000 citations almost that to his name checked. That's all the stuff the left says they like, but the TV doesn't put their attention to it. They don't want to hear about it. But this is not about left or right. Every human being, no matter what your ideology, wants to see cancer cured or defeated or set back dramatically and drop the rates and increase the rates of survival and so forth. But our media doesn't care. They act like they're a nanny, but they're an uncaring, cold, cruel nanny that doesn't care about the job that they've supposedly been entrusted with. They haven't been, by the way. The Constitution didn't make them nannies, but I'm just playing into their framework and just looking from their shoes. They failed under their own standard of what they tell you every day they are and what they probably lie to themselves that they are. Oh, I'm their nanny. I'm their caretaker. I will get all the credit. Like Cuomo, remember? Putting out books. Thousands of people died under his watch because of his reckless, ridiculous policies. We've got to change the way we engage this whole framework. We've got to repent of our worship of politics. And with that, a repentance of our worship of the cult of experts, as some call it, and this idea that we can compartmentalize our lives and not look at truth and not allow our conscience to guide us. That coercion is not right. It's not right if you do it. You should never force your neighbor to do something. You should never put a gun to their head and say, I'm going to get you fired if you don't do what I want. You don't do that. That's barbaric. And it doesn't make it right if you get politicians to do this for you through passive-aggressive laws or direct laws in some states and some countries. It doesn't make it right. We know what's right. We have to get back to our conscience. We've numbed it out because we've lived in such a decadent, comfortable society, so many of us, with all the modern, fancy, comforts we can ask for. We've been amusing ourselves to death. And so now we're getting a wake-up call. Wait a second. These politicians, they're telling us to do a bunch of stuff. It doesn't seem ethical. It doesn't seem right. But that deep-seated desire to scapegoat and pick on people and bully people and tell people what to do kicks in, and some of us get drawn into that. So we start wanting to go along with politicians trying to dictate to people what they have to put in their body in order to get food on the table. It's ridiculous. This is not where we were supposed to be at all. It's totally not acceptable. We have to push through it. We can't be Pollyannas, but we have to understand that if we keep our hearts strong and we have confidence and we really take care of our neighbor in our own life and love our neighbors and family members courageously and boldly and joyfully, that will make a big impact so that future generations can come out of this scene and they'll be stronger than ever, more hungry for liberty and virtue than ever before. We can have that. It's not a flight of fancy. It's a real reality. It's more real than their utopian remaking of human nature, because our hearts long to follow the true man of history, the true master of history. We long to follow his way. But yet we put up all these hurdles and we put up all these fancy toys and fancy idols and silly wars and silly schemes for remaking the planet or whatever. All these are towers of Babel, and they will all fail. They will all crumble, and we'll still be left with our conscience. When it's the end of the day and our time's up on this earth, we still got to deal with our conscience. Still got to do with our heart. Did I use my time on this earth to love people, to have mercy, to reconcile with people, to forgive people, to sow nonviolence, to make people think, to help people achieve their true potential? Or did I spend my time taking shortcuts to heaven that led to hell on earth for everybody around me, and use my voice to be consumed by fear, and from that place lord over my neighbor? That's the thing we'll have to deal with, every one of us, every day, and when it's all said and done at the end of the day. I'm David Gronowski. We'll be back in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved two people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
David Gronowski here. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice Radio. Go to our website at neighborschoice.com to see all of our content, videos, podcasts, articles, online-only roundtables with some of the brightest minds and interesting voices, courageous thinkers, people who are inspirational in science. It's like a catalog. It's like a little underground university or whatever, where you can learn from so many different interesting voices. And I just am very honored to have the opportunity to meet so many interesting people and learn from so many people with you along the way. I think there is some disgruntlement with policy even among the most conformists now. That's a commenter from Australia referring to the reaction to that country's heavy-handed approach, to say the least. Doesn't do it justice. Jason says, good Lord, I would hope so. Decadence leads to complacence. Stay strong. And Scott says, beautiful words, David. Cheers. So there's all kinds of, emotions out there. People feel afraid and are scared, but you got to understand, again, I want to reiterate this to you, that you're not alone. Most of human history has been tyrants, and tyrants aren't like a separated class. It's just what human beings do when they choose violence and aggression and ego over what's right. And then when you give those choices, those people that make those choices, access to monopoly power, it becomes tyrannical. That's the nature of human history. You look at the stories of the Old Testament, and you've got warring tribes coming by and wiping out and everybody and taking the women and children and terrible things as slavery and horrible things happening. I mean, we don't even know what that's like to live in that existential dread that some tribe or team could come by on back and your houses, your huts and everything are on fire, and everybody you know and love is either tortured or terrible things. That's the record of human history. It's not a movie. We see it in a movie, but that's where it's been. And I don't think we're going to go to those types of violence. I think it may be other types of coercion and challenges we haven't thought about before. But we have to understand that, the decadent little pillow of windows of time that we get are not reflective of the vast, record of history. At the same time, what makes this time worse than the past is that governments have this kind of messianic imitation of Christianity mixed in with, pre-Christian, pagan, sacrificial violence. And so they have this messianic zeal to meddle with your life, and that, well, at least they have narratives that they buy into, like I was talking to you earlier. Oh, we do all this stuff because we really care, even though all of our information is continually causing your heart diseases and stuff like that to drive up through the, stratosphere. The narrative is, but we do all of these terrible, heavy-handed things because we care so much. That's their little narrative. They borrow that from Christianity because that's our cultural inheritance. So they have to use parasitically, like all of us do when we're doing wrong things, the stories and the sense-making and the ethics and the aesthetic that we were all born into for thousands of years. And so that's the reality. That's the grand scheme of history. I saw a meme that said, the same, did you know that 1980 and 2021 are as far apart as 1980 and 1939? And I thought about it. I said, you don't think of them as that distance equally. But it's because we've had a slowdown where technology is not developing and things are not moving at the same pace they were in the positive way, in some sense, as at other time. And so we need to get going here. Let's have a renaissance of innovation and love and family-friendly culture. That's what we have to build together. Back with Maj Toure in just a moment.
Weekdays 9 to noon.
President Trump at CPAC. We will protect and defend our cherished American legacy and freedom.
The Chris Plant Show.
For ourselves, for our children, and for every future generation, my fellow Americans, our movement is the greatest in American history. and it has just begun.
Yeah, that's why YouTube wants to cancel it.
Chris Blank.
Because they don't want competition for the Democrat Party.
9 to noon weekdays. News Talk 1040 WHBO.
Now that the FDA has fully approved Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine, will more people roll up their sleeves and get the shots?
COVID-19 poses a much greater risk than any possible rare adverse effects that we have seen with the vaccine. And these vaccines, again, are proving tremendously effective in keeping people out of the hospital.
ABC News medical contributor Dr. Darian Sutton. U.S. troops ramping up their effort to evacuate Americans and certain Afghan nationals from Afghanistan.
This is an enormous logistical, diplomatic, security, humanitarian undertaking. There is no other country in the world who could pull something like this off, bar none.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says more than 15,000 people have been evacuated in a 24-hour period. Rescue efforts continue after historic flooding in Tennessee. At least 21 confirmed dead. The cleanup is underway from the Jersey Shore to southern New England from what was once Tropical Storm Henri. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo will resign in a minute before midnight tonight. Daria Albinger, ABC.
News Talk 1040 Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer. This weather brought to you by Insulation Plus of Tampa. Call Insulation Plus of Tampa at 813-951-4374 and save money today. Partly cloudy and muggy today at 35%, widely scattered any time of the afternoon storm at 90, 45% tonight at 77, big 65% anytime Tuesday storms up to 89. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer for News Talk 1040 WHP.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gronowski. We are live on radio, podcast, and video stream and our website, aneighborschoice.com. You're going to want to really subscribe to the Rumble stream. I know we've got such a great conversation and community on the YouTube thing, but you know how that company is. So we have to, go to platforms where there's more respect for an intelligent discourse and, just courageous conversations. Let's have fun. Let's have a great time learning. Let's grow. You got to recognize, people think again, right now, you got people in Afghanistan worried about what's going to happen to their freedoms and their families because of retribution, because of being against the Taliban and so forth. You got people in countries all over the globe, Indonesia, you got people all over the place who live with very vicious gangs or warlords or, all kinds of really dire situations. And yet still they have joy and they have singing and they have culture and they have weddings and they have births and they have celebrations and they still go on. Life goes on. As Jurassic Park says, life finds a way, and that's what we have to celebrate, life. We can't allow people to rob us of our joy. Even if we are against bad behavior, we can't allow them to, steal our joy from us, steal our spirit from us, our spirit of positivity and confidence, our love of wonder. Look at that word wonder. Have you ever thought about that word wonder? Not wandering, wonder. We don't have wonder. We need wonder again. That's what we talk about when we say such is the kingdom of these, that the childlike wonder is what makes life exciting, and we get it taught out of us. Our government schools teach us, stop wondering. Stop having wonder and awe. Stop having curiosity. Stop being you. Flatten yourself out into a cookie cutter formation. And this is not what we know in our hearts to be the way of humanity. That we were born for greatness. We were born for beauty. We were born to pursue truth. And that truth is represented in the master of history himself, Jesus. And he's the hero. He's still the one that gets more search results than any of your favorite politicians or hated politicians, dead or alive. The world is more captivated by this man than anybody else. So we better reckon with it. We better reckon, most importantly, not just with using his name in a vain way, but using his way of life as a roadmap out of this detour into tyranny. With us now is a person who is quite a thinker and activist. He is the founder of Black Guns Matter, but he's also heading up a solutionary summit in South Florida soon. We have with us Maj Toure. How you doing, Maj?
Hey, what's going on, y'all? How y'all feeling?
Doing great. It's great having you on the program again. It's been a few. We've had you on over the years, and man, the news gets wilder and wilder every time we bring you back.
Right. It's now turning into opposite year. Last year in 2020 was literally opposite year, 1984 and 2020. But glad to be here, man. I'm really appreciative of you guys opening up the platform to us.
Yeah. So, you tell us a little bit about what's going on. First of all, for those of us who are in Florida, what do you have going on in the Solutionary Summit in South Florida? That's in Miami, right?
Yeah, it's in Miami, September the 3rd through the 5th. We have, decided to push back against the agenda that's going to stop people that are more a little bit right of center. We're seeing, and again, this is my view, as well as our organization, Black Guns Matter. We're seeing an all-out attack and assault, maybe even subtly, more subtle, but not as subtle as it used to be, on people that have, different, more conservative or more liberty-based views. And I say conservative, I don't mean necessarily Republican per se or just only, but just some areas where it's like, listen, we want to get to the solution. We want to work with people that are independent, libertarian, Republican, Democrat, whatever, that have solutions to these issues that we're dealing with. What we're recognizing is, the level of horrific execution by, our government currently. We're dealing with things that are kind of silly. And both sides, so-called Americans, are seeing it. So the Solutionary Summit is a mixture of some of very powerful minds dealing in finance, culture, wealth, hip-hop, politics, all of these different things. We have, Kwame Brown coming. We have Angela Stanton King, who received a pardon from President Trump a while back. We have Kimberly Klacik, who ran in Baltimore's district. We have Larry Sharp, who's a brilliant libertarian mind. We have hip-hop artist Tone Trump coming to this. We have, Dr. Boyce Watkins. People that want to empower our communities, especially in areas like South Florida, that a lot of people are more open to more right-of-center ideology while being objective enough to appreciate solutions for anyone. So it's the Solutionary Summit. It's just answers. Our Americans need the answer. We don't need to be as polarized in the sense of fighting back and forth, but we can identify whatever we identify as in regards to right of center, left of center, whatever. But at a certain point, we got to come up with solutions for the American people, and that's what this Solutionary Summit is about, and this is our second year doing it.
Some people feel like we're, with all these crazy mandates and lockdowns and crazy stuff going on in Australia and New York and mandates to get into food and go to a restaurant, that we're entering in a dark age that's going to be around for a while, this new normal and wanting to control. Do you think that we're entering into a dark age, or are we really possibly exiting out of a dark age, and maybe it's going to be a little bit of turbulence on the way out of the atmosphere, right?
I think the reality is, as government shows that they're, more and more incompetent, the American people are seeing we're going backwards in the sense of recognizing the founding principles as written to this nation, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. We're actually starting to see more of like, oh, right, this is why limited government was the thing, that the founding fathers to this nation with their contradictions at certain points. But the founding fathers, what they did get right was what they wrote down. Okay, and I think that more people are seeing that because government is becoming more and more overreaching. You've got a Democrat so-called public servant from this, New York State. I just read today that he's presenting some legislation to introducing a bill to put everyone that is not vaccinated on a no-fly list. This is what we're dealing with now. Again, right of center, left of center, centrist, whatever. You know that no-fly list is for terrorists. Period. Guys that are suspected of being really, really bad guys. Now we're at a point where the American people are seeing, okay, we're getting out of this ignorant space because we're seeing how, more specifically, this administration is pushing for things that are not in alignment with our liberties, that is not in alignment with our constitutional and human and natural rights. So if you ask me that question, I say we're in that bit of a turbulence as the people are waking up and going backwards a bit to the founding principles and documents that this nation was founded upon. So I think we, in the turbulence, going back into, an enlightened age as we get more Americans to be aware. And like I said, this administration is doing a heavy lifting for us because they're being very, very incompetent, and Ray Charles can see it.
What do you think about the reality that we're waking up to the fact that so many cities around this country here in America are going to apparently literally implement some kind of fascist stuff where you can't go in and have a meal? I mean, imagine you got a kid, you want to take him to a birthday party or do something basic, and you can't go into retail spaces, you can't go to restaurants, you can't go to the gym to get your comorbidities reduced with exercise. I mean, these people are insane. I mean, is this really going to be a daily reality for Americans in these cities for a long time, or where do you see this going?
No, it's not going to be an American reality. They're trying to make it an American nightmare, and it will not be an American reality. There is no new normal. It's normal. Freedom is normal. Leaving people alone, not asking them about their private medical information and history is normal. If you are sick, you have the right to choose whatever treatment you choose and not choose. That's normal. This will not be the American reality. They come up with these little cute slogans like the new normal to try to make people accept it. And you can see it because all of the outlets kind of say the same phrase, right? But no, we're fine with regular normal. We're fine with, hey, man, I'm feeling a little sick. I'm feeling a little feverish and sluggish. Maybe I'll isolate myself, drink some water, get some sunlight, be a little bit more healthy to, nurse myself back into good health. That's normal. The American people, we're seeing even extreme leftists start to question, on the federal level, question Joe Biden's leadership. We're seeing it. We're talking about, and not that, it's not new for Democrats to throw each other under the bus, but on the presidential level, we haven't seen that in a very long time. And so, again, the American people are seeing that, and they're saying, no, thank you. Imagine, but again, I don't want to offend people, but I kind of do. I'm okay with offending people. The reality is, if you're okay with this type of segregation, you're no better than people that were in support of Jim Crow laws that segregated black people in America, and that's part of the course for the Democratic Party. That's a part of their history. Yeah. So when we're talking about these cities all around the country, the vast majority that are trying to push for that medical apartheid and medical segregation, right, and medical bias and bigotry, the vast majority of those cities are democratically ran cities. And we as the American people, I love you if you're an American, if you are a Democrat, right? Because I know I can inform you, right?
Right.
But the reality is, even those Democrats, the rank and file, they're seeing it. They're seeing it. You got weirdos like I forget the comedian guy. He says, "Oh man, you guys are super spreaders. Get the vaccine, you idiot." Michael Rappaport, I think that's his name. Then a few days later, he's like, "Oh, the Democratic mayor's calling me a super spreader, and I got the vaccine." They're seeing the contradiction. So no, we are not. This is not the new normal. It's normal. Liberty is the American normal, and we will not accept a new American nightmare.
Yeah, it's well said. And there's signs of hope going around. You look at California, which is the mecca of the leftist policies, and, you've got a lot of polls showing Gavin Newsom, the majority of people want him fired, and Larry Elder, who's this conservative libertarian, is leading in the polls to replace him. I mean, who would have thought this would have happened in California anytime, especially? But it shows you, majority of Hispanics are saying we've had enough of this lunatic. African American support is dropping for Newsom. So that's what I'm excited about is a broad coalition of people with hearts on fire for family and liberty all the way.
You know what I'm amazed by? Like you said, again, the American people of all persuasions are seeing the foolish legislation and contradictions that people like Gavin Newsom have done for years to the state of California. They see it. Even people that identify as left, right?
Right.
I love the fact that this amount of people are seeing it and calling it out. And I love the fact that there are, young and fresh politicians that you can write in, guys like Major Williams over there in California running for governor. People that you can write in that don't have to be, just from the status quo. Just because, you're in California, so you're supposed to be in alignment with Democratic policies. The American people are seeing that Democratic policies are not helping in urban centers across America. It's not. You look at. I saw a poll in December of 2020, and it said that when they ran the Dominion machines, they did a separate audit. Those machines had about a 68% failure rate, and it wasn't a bug. It was almost like it was moved into that system. Now, I'm saying this to say, even my leftist friends that live in California are admitting there's something strange about that, And so these are the things, these are great times, these are beautiful times for us to push forward for liberty. I want people to look into independence. I want people to look into libertarian. I want people to look into young, fresh candidates and know that you have more than just, this one option. And this is a beautiful time to be alive.
We're speaking with Maj Toure, who's going to be doing the Solutionary Summit in Miami September 3rd, right? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. September the 3rd through the 5th. We want all of Miami, all of Florida to come out. You can contact me at Maj Toure, Majtoure. You can go to our website and grab tickets. It's a 3-day event. There's different levels of, people can get tickets, solutionarylifestyle.org. And if you are impacted by these financial situations that governments have made your business or your job slow down, you can email us at solutionarylifestyle@gmail.com. And we can send you even more discounted tickets for the Solutionary Summit. But again, that website is solutionarylifestyle.org.
Now let's take a quick break. I want to ask your opinion on what your take is on the Afghanistan withdrawal, how that was done, the optics, the whole thing. Back in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice with Maj Toure.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
You read about it, you've seen it on the news. Used car values are off the charts, and Brandon Ford is doing whatever it takes to stay ahead of the curve. Here's Wayne Hammond.
In all my time in this business, I've never seen anything like this. Used car values are moving faster than a rabbit with a fox on its tail. So here at Brandon Ford, we're adjusting our used car books every day to make sure you're paying the lowest possible price for the best possible pre-owned vehicle. We are even discounting our low-mileage retired demos.
Only the largest volume Ford dealer in the world has the flexibility to keep the cost of pre-owned vehicles low while every other dealer needs to raise prices. And Wayne, you're giving top dollar for trade-ins.
If you want to get a smoking deal and top dollar for your trade, come see us right now. My full-scale used car clearance sale is the place to be.
Going on now at Brandon Ford, the largest volume Ford dealer in America. Highway 60 and 301 in Tampa, and at BrandonFord.com.
If you want to save on pre-owned Jeeps, Rams, Kias, BMWs, get to Brandon Ford's full-scale used car clearance sale right now.
A Neighbor's Choice returns, and we're talking with Maj Touré, who's the founder of the solutionarylifestyle.org group. They've got a Solutionary Summit 2021 in Miami. You don't want to miss this. If you're able to attend, it's going to be a lot of fun for folks. September 3rd through the 5th, you can get your tickets online. They're going to have folks like Judge Joe Brown, Angela Stanton-King, who comes on our show a lot, and Dr. Boyce Watkins, Sonny Johnson, who's on Sirius Radio. So a lot of interesting speakers going on. Maj, I want to get, what is your message to the folks in Australia? Right now, they've got 9 p.m. curfew. They get warrants for arrest for leaving your apartment building. They get criminal charges for driving the wrong way. What's your response or answer to the Australian people right now?
The Australian people made a huge mistake a few years ago when they allowed their draconian government to remove pretty much their right to keep and bear arms. And now they're seeing the outcome of that. Now, that it's unfortunate for the people in the land down under, but it's a cursory tale for the rest of the world, especially Americans. You know, government isn't a good thing. Government doesn't produce anything. Government doesn't sell anything. Government takes your money and redistributes it. That's why the founding fathers were about very limited government. And we see right now the people in Australia not being criminalized for wanting to be free. I think a lot of times because we, most of us, listening, have lived in America, for a decent amount of time, and living in America, we become to recognize and even become complacent with our freedoms and our liberties. And those things, can be removed by just you're not being involved in defending them. So if I lived in Australia, this wouldn't be happening to me. We have to recognize that, unfortunately, at some point when government or people are violating your human rights, you have the human right to defend your freedoms and your liberties. And that can become aggressive. I mean, the state will send people in Australia, if you're outside after a certain time, a curfew, you as an adult don't have the right to be out past 9 p.m. And I think that's, some people will say, well, they're just doing it for the greater good. No, the greater good cannot sacrifice individual liberty. Right. And I think a lot of us in America are seeing these things, but again, it's a cursory tale for us to make sure that we're not repeating. What we don't like as a follower, we do not do as a leader. And I think we should be recognizing that in Australia. We should be recognizing that also in places around the country that are pushing back even harder against COVID restrictions. Places like France, Denmark, these places that are openly resisting. Some of it very peaceful, some of it civilly disobedient, and some of it not. Because to be perfectly honest, the state will not always be nice and polite to you when they're violating your rights. So I think everyone should be looking at this on an international scale as what we're not going to allow to happen in America.
Right. Now I want to turn to the Afghanistan exit. I've been wanting us to get out of Afghanistan for a long time, but it's just evidence of how incompetent our government is that they couldn't even exit properly. They didn't know how to pull out right. And so you have the situation where you've got, White Ranger guy, Mark Milley, talking about he didn't see anything to suggest that the Afghan army would fold as fast. So they spent $2 trillion and they couldn't figure out what everybody in the world thought was inevitable. What's your take on this fallout here?
My take on Biden and his pullout game is the same as Biden's pullout game with his son, Hunter. He's been horrible at pulling out, generally. I think that his creations of lack of the ability to pull out is a strong showcase. I mean, we have, think about it this way, you know, and this hasn't just been, you know, the Biden administration. George W. Bush is who started this foolishness, okay? And we got to be honest about that, you know? And we got trillions of dollars, 4 presidents, 21 and a half years, just for the Taliban or Afghanistan to be taken over by the Taliban. So we replaced the Taliban with the Taliban, with all of those things. As far as the pullout by this particular administration, the Trump administration had something in place. And I want to remind the people that there was not one American casualty during that year that, you know, President Trump at that time said, hey, we're going to leave in May. Because you have to negotiate with the Taliban because they're the guys with the guns, right? Hey, if there's any casualties of Americans, all bets are off. We out in May. Unfortunately, President Trump's re-election was stolen. So because of that, he wasn't there. So let's be clear. The Taliban kept up their end of the bargain while President Trump was in office. No American casualties happened during that year. The Biden administration did not maintain what the previous administration said was to be done. So let's be clear. The Taliban kept their word on this, but the Biden administration did not. And then you remove all of the troops, and I'm a fan of getting all of our troops home. We got infrastructure issues to deal with, businesses that need to be supported. So I think all of those men should be home, and women. But let's be clear. You removed the entire armed forces without securing the American citizens that were there. That's a level of incompetency that, you know, which is indicative of what government does. So I say this to say, we have to remember all of these things, like Trump, like Biden, dislike Biden. Government, as it's been moving, has been a problem. We have spent trillions of dollars on this, and we have gained nothing. Nothing. But a lot of my friends that have lost friends, loved ones, brothers, sisters, and arms to this. And it's an example. You know, Rand Paul is a great public servant. And he speaks to, as well as Thomas Massey, they speak to, hey, we aren't even supposed to be at war unless it's voted on by Congress. And these so-called conflicts, no, we got to stop. So it's more incompetency, but I think that the silver lining is, again, more Americans are seeing how silly, you know, certain levels of government are, and we have to work locally and work our way up to remove these rogue agencies and deep state people that are influencing our elections, influencing our spending in essence, because trillions of dollars go into war that we gain nothing from. So I think the people are waking up to it because they're seeing the incompetence unfold in real time.
And if they spend $2 trillion on trying to make Afghanistan a better country and they fail that miserably, why would we listen to that government about what we should do for our health? I mean, it's absolutely insane.
Right. Right. Same exact government that says I can't have NSA items for firearms, but they leave billions of dollars of arms in the hands of the people that they told us are terrorists for the last 21 and a half years. So again, there's no better word than incompetence. There's no better word to fit the description.
Well, very good, Maj Toure. Thanks for joining us, and we want people to check out the Solutionary Summit this September 3rd through the 5th in Miami. Go to solutionarylifestyle.org to see more information. Thanks, Maj.
Thank you. Peace.
And that's it for A Neighbor's Choice, folks. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. I'm David Gronowski. Godspeed.